Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, Robert Meyer Burnett. I invite you to watch and listen to the Designing Hollywood podcast, brought to you by Martika Ibarra and the great, legendary Hollywood costume designer, Marilyn Vance. I am afforded the wonderful opportunity of co-hosting the show. If you are interested in the magic of Hollywood, the design of Hollywood, the clothes of Hollywood, watch the Designing Hollywood podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts from, or find the video version on the John Campea YouTube channel. That's right, the Designing Hollywood podcast. Why would you ever want to miss it? Especially if you love the movies.
Robservations with Robert Meyer Burnett.
Imagination Connoisseurs Unlimited presents its first project, the Nathan Heller Casebooks, True Noir, brought to you by Road to Perdition author Max Allen Collins. Look for the crowdfunding campaign to start in December. Greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of sci-fi and cinema, your evangelist of the imagination, and of course, the maybe never to be defined existential Mr. Rogers. That's right, me, Robert Meyer Burnett, and I'm robcasting at you from here in the Robservatory. You imagination connoisseurs, you members of this Post-Geek Singularity community. This is Robservations episode 901 in our inexorable march towards 1,000. Yes, that's right, ladies and gentlemen. I'll announce it right now. Kind souls, gentle beings, however you identify across the 28 known galaxies, I'm going to do a 1,000-minute show. That's right. I'm going to have guests. I'm going to have interviews. It's going to be a Robstravaganza. Don't quote me on that. It's terrible. I know. It's bad. Welcome, though, to all you people that still support me. You know, it's really funny. I've had a lot of people that over the last month, it's not funny. I mean, the reasons aren't funny, but a lot of people have come after me pretty hard, and they're like, "You're not the person I thought you were." And what's funny to me is I think I've always been the person that I am. I mean, if you've watched this show for any length of time, this show alone, there's 900 episodes where you can go back and you can see, am I contradictory? I mean, I think I'm pretty. What's interesting, I find, is that I don't talk about everything that goes on in my head on these shows. These are entertainment-related shows. I talk about mostly subjects that concern imagination connoisseurs. So it's not like I'm discussing what I believe on a lot of different issues, because that's not what this show is about. But my beliefs are, I have many beliefs about a great many things. And it's very funny when somebody comes across and they seemingly discover something where, for whatever reason, it shakes their worldview of who and what I am. And they're like, "Fuck you. I'm not going to listen to you anymore. I'm going to call John Campea and have you fired." I mean, people are saying that to me. And it's like, wow, man. I mean, isn't everybody kind of an ongoing continuum? And the more information, like I'm an information sponge. You know, when I was a kid, I loved going to school. In kindergarten, I remember, so Miss Savage was my kindergarten teacher. Mrs. Fromm was my first grade teacher. Mrs. Bard, later Mrs. Reith, or Miss Bard, later Mrs. Reith was my second grade teacher. Mrs. Young was my third grade teacher. Mrs. Walton was my fourth grade teacher. Mrs. Francisco was my fifth grade teacher. And Bob Park was my sixth grade teacher. And I loved school. I loved learning. You tell me a new fact. I've told the story about how I loved getting a World Book Encyclopedia, and I would just read the World Book Encyclopedia cover to cover. Not all at once, sure. But I've always been an information sponge. And it's been very interesting. Like, I really don't understand this bizarre situation we found ourselves in where people only want to hear one side of an issue, or they only want to hear from people that they like or agree with, I'm like, what is that about? I mean, I already know what I believe. I once heard somebody say that you should never truly believe that you know something, because if you think that you know something, you stop thinking about it, which means you're no longer open to receive input that could either change your point of view, augment your point of view. Don't you just love these new things? I mean, I love these new things. But it's strange to me that there's a side of me that I really don't talk about. And that side of me is that, yes, I was adopted, but I was adopted into a Jewish family. My father's side of the family was very Jewish. My father's sister, my aunt, her sons, Doug, Rick, and Greg. I mean, they went to Israel and grew up. They lived on kibbutzes. And Judaism was a big part of my upbringing. I went to religion school for a long time. I learned Hebrew. I was bar mitzvahed. I found out when I was 29 years old, my biological mother was in fact Jewish. So I don't talk about those things. My family's foundation on my mother's side, the Schoenfelds, there's still they had a charitable foundation called the Schoenfeld Gardner Foundation. They built a chapel at our temple, Temple D. Hirsch Synagogue in Seattle. That, by the way, earlier this year, before October, was defaced with anti-Semitic graffiti. So this is something that's been a part of my life that isn't a part of this show, but it's certainly a part of me. I went to Israel in 2005 to present with director Roger Nygaard, who directed Trekkies. So anyway, but it's interesting and then people are saying, are you advocating for the death of babies? If you've watched me for any length of time, do I want to see the loss of any life? I mean, I don't know if you've been following the story about what happened in Las Vegas, but a 17-year-old boy was beat to death for stepping in to try and help a younger kid who was being bullied. 8 of those kids between 13 and 17 were arrested for murder today. This is the world that we're living in. There's been a complete disconnect, I think, in terms of there's so much. Immediately, people are going from 0 to 60 in terms of their hate. If they hear something or they believe, I mean, people are really getting off committing crimes. And I don't know what it is, what's going on, but we're seeing it across the world. There is a bloodlust on the planet, and it's sweeping the planet for whatever reason. I read an article today that says there are 300,000 dead Russians and Russian casualties. A total of how many people they've lost and how many casualties. A total of 300,000 people. America, we didn't even lose 57,000 people in the entirety we were in Vietnam. 300,000 people. All I'm saying is that, I have a lot to say about these kinds of things, but it doesn't belong on this show. Anyway, I just thought you should know I was thinking about that. Because I don't just think about imagination. I don't just think about Star Trek. I don't think anybody who's an inquisitive individual, when people say, I don't want to talk about politics, I don't understand why people don't want to talk about politics. Everything is political. Our movies, Captain America, the Winter Soldier, is first and foremost a superhero movie, but it's also a political thriller. I grew up loving political thrillers. I mean, I remember seeing like the parallax view on TV when I was 10. I was totally fascinated. Of course, I've always been fascinated. Like I've said, Susan Orlean, who wrote The Orchid Thief, if you took me to a horticulture festival, I would stay there all day learning as much as I could. So anyway, I think what we all need to do is really start taking a step back, and rather than decide that you hate somebody because of their point of view. I mean, when you really get to know them, then you can hate them. If they've proven to you on a number of different issues that you really can't stand them, by all means, hate them. But don't stop learning about them, and don't discount their point of view. I did not vote for Donald Trump, but remember, a great deal of Americans did vote for Donald Trump. And everybody's coming at me now. Look, there's a possibility Donald Trump could be in the White House again. And if that possibility comes, for better or for worse, he's our president. So the question is, if Donald Trump becomes our president again, what kind of a country are we looking to live in? And I think the question, look, we don't teach civics anymore, but I think it's one of the things that being an imagination connoisseur is to explore what it means to be a human being in all of its myriad forms. And I think that's why people are drawn to science fiction, fantasy, horror, comics, video games. I mean, a lot of people do them are interested in this kind of material to escape. But I've always thought of it as being a mirror to what it means to be human. And we're here for such a short period of time. It's such a shame that human history is just replete with all kinds of horrors that we've visited upon one another. We can't wait to get rid of our fellow human beings throughout history, which is unfortunate. And I see a level of the hatred that I believe is being purposefully fomented via social media by external bad actors. I'm not wearing a tinfoil conspiracy theory hat here, but watch that documentary with the Russian that defected from Canada. I think the interview is from 1984. And listen just write defecting Russian, 1984, Canada, disinformation or whatever. Watch his interview and hear what he says about how America can be destabilized, but it will take a generation. Listen to what he says. This was in 84. And when smartphone technology came about in 2007, the iPhone was released in 2007, we now started carrying around the greatest disinformation and social programming device that ever existed. And we all willingly carry it. Now think about it. If you have people that have been running psyops for decades, toppling governments, changing regimes, doing whatever they want to do, what do you think they're going to do when everybody is willingly carrying pamphlets that we used to drop from the sky, except these pamphlets are electronic and they have the entirety of all human information in them, and they're like a narcotic? Make no mistake. There's social engineering going on here, and it's been going on for a long time, and we're seeing the results of it all around the world in many different areas of society. But again, don't take my word for it. Think of it as an intriguing conspiracy theorist plot for some movie that you might not have seen yet, and look into it for yourselves. Anyway, enough of that. Let's get into the topic at hand. So many of you have heard of Coyote versus Acme. Now, I don't know about y'all, but when I was a kid, I loved Looney Tunes. And, I like Bugs Bunny, and I did like Yosemite Sam and Thuffering Thuckatash. I did love all of the Looney Tunes, but I think everybody's favorite, especially when you're a kid, is Wile E. Coyote. Sad Wile E. Coyote and his endless quest to bag the Roadrunner. And with the help of the Acme company that he bought all manner, Q Branch certainly did not work at the Acme company. But poor Wile E. Coyote bought so many products from Acme in the hopes that one day he was able to bag Wile E. Coyote. And he never did it. And the Acme company had a lot to answer for. So, believe it or not, Coyote versus Acme is based on a 1990 essay, humorous essay, that appeared in the New Yorker magazine. And wouldn't you know it, I have it right here. I bet you thought I wouldn't. Oh no, I'm kidding. You knew I would. So here is the essay that appeared in the New Yorker. And let's delve into it, shall we? So we can get a better idea of what this actually is. Now, this was written. Let's see if I can find the actual. It was written by Ian Fraser and it was published February 18th, 1990. Now, Ian Fraser has a book that collects a bunch of humorous essays that this was actually in. So it's hilarious. And it's obviously set up like a court document in the United States District Court, Southwestern District, Tempe, Arizona. Case number B19294, Judge Joan Kajava presiding. presiding, Wile E. Coyote. Wile E. Coyote. I always said Wile E. Coyote, but it's Wile E. Coyote. Who are we talking about? Wile E. Coyote, plaintiff. Acme Company, defendant. Opening statement of Mr. Harold Schloff, attorney for Mr. Coyote. My client, Mr. Wile E. Coyote, a resident of Arizona and contiguous states, does hereby bring suit for damages against the Acme Company, manufacturer and retailer distributor of assorted merchandise, incorporated in Delaware and doing business in every state, district, and territory. Mr. Coyote seeks compensation for personal injuries, loss of business income, and mental suffering caused as a direct result of the actions and/or gross negligence of said company under Title 15 of the United States Code, Chapter 47, Section 2072, Subsection A, relating to product liability. Mr. Coyote states that on 85 separate occasions, he has purchased of the Acme Company, hereinafter defendant, through that company's mail order department, certain products which did cause him bodily injury due to defects in manufacture or improper cautionary labeling. Sales slips made to Mr. Coyote as proof of purchase are at present in the possession of the court, marked Exhibit A. Such injuries sustained by Mr. Coyote have temporarily restricted his ability to make a living in his profession of predator. Mr. Coyote is self-employed and thus not eligible for workers' compensation. Mr. Coyote states that on December 13th, he received of defendant via parcel post one Acme rocket sled. The intention of Mr. Coyote was to use the rocket sled to aid him in pursuit of his prey. Upon receipt of the rocket sled, Mr. Coyote removed it from its wooden shipping crate and, sighting his prey in the distance, activated the ignition. As Mr. Coyote gripped the handlebars, the rocket sled accelerated with such sudden and precipitate force as to stretch Mr. Coyote's forelimbs to the length of 50 feet. Subsequently, the rest of Mr. Coyote's body shot forward with a violent jolt, causing severe strain to his back and neck and placing him unexpectedly astride the rocket sled, disappearing over the horizon at such speed to leave a diminishing jet trail along its path. The rocket sled soon brought Mr. Coyote abreast of his prey. At that moment, the animal he was pursuing veered sharply to the right. Mr. Coyote vigorously attempted to follow this maneuver, but was unable to due to the poorly designed steering on the rocket sled and a faulty or non-existent braking system. Shortly thereafter, the unchecked progress of the rocket sled brought it and Mr. Coyote into collision with the side of a mesa. So this article goes on. You can find it in the New Yorker, NewYorker.com, Coyote versus Acme. If you would like to read it, I strongly suggest reading it because it's very funny. So this was an article that was written in 1990, and as Hollywood is wont to do, like something like Top Gun, which was based on a magazine article, they finally decided years later, over 30 years later, to turn this into a movie. James Gunn was a producer, and he has a writing credit on the screenplay. Now, look, I understand some of you cynics out there might say that this is a one-joke movie, but they made the movie. And believe it or not, the movie was supposed to come out the day that Barbie came out. They changed the release date, they pushed Barbie up, and moved Coyote versus Acme off that date. Now, according to news reports, which I'm going to get to in a minute, Coyote versus Acme had in the 90s, it scored in the 90s at test screenings, which is really good. And so here's what I find really interesting. If you've got a movie that you test screen that's in the 90s, that's really pretty much a bona fide hit. You got a hit there. Now, Warner Brothers, obviously, when Warner Brothers merged with Discovery, Warner is carrying a massive debt load. Now, I am no financial whiz, but they're like literally $50 billion in debt. And with the way the streaming services work, and obviously you can't just, making up $50 billion, you can't just pull that out of your ass. You have to figure out ways to cut costs or whatever. So this movie, like Warner Brothers' job is to make content. And nowadays, if you make content that is good. We've talked about this forever on this show for 5 years. We're coming up on the show's 5-year anniversary. As a matter of fact, it might have just passed. I have to go back and look and see when Robservations episode 1 aired. We might be 5 years, our 5-year anniversary show. We should do that. I'll do that. I'll do it in December regardless. But so anyway, if you're making a movie and you release it theatrically, that's what gives a film its value. And some people would say, well, Rob, sometimes movies don't make money theatrically. Like, look what happened to Shawshank Redemption. That didn't make any money, but it went on. It didn't make any money theatrically. But during the era of home video and DVD, The Shawshank Redemption is one of the most beloved films of all time. And by the way, the reason that Shawshank Redemption, they didn't know how to market that movie. How do you market Shawshank Redemption? On the poster, they didn't even want anyone to know it was based on a Stephen King story, and they didn't want anyone to know that it predominantly took place in a prison. If you look at the actual key art, the advertising, you have topless Tim Robbins standing in the rain. Shawshank Redemption. What the fuck did that mean? Who came up with that ad campaign? Guess what? You failed. You failed it. You had one job and you failed. But anyway, so anyone that has watched Looney Tunes in their lives, which is, I don't know, the whole fucking planet Earth. Anyone who had any knowledge of this, in 1990, our boy Ian here, he wrote this humorous essay that is hilarious. And by the way, this is one of my favorite. I don't know what this genre is. When you take something fantastical and you bring it down to earth, what is the name of this genre? It must have a name. When you take something that's totally a flight of fancy, you bring it down to earth and you try and make it part of the real world. That's what I love, whatever that genre is. I don't know if it has an official name or what, but I love this genre. And so I love articles like this. And I remember reading this article when it was new. And it was funny because I hadn't really been charting that this movie got made, but there's been people, Ben David Grabinski, a guy I know who is instrumental in the new Scott Pilgrim animated series. Congratulations to Ben David Grabinski and all of his cast and crew on that, and to everybody who's involved. I can't wait to see that this week, right? So, even he said, I guess he's seen the movie. And it's a combination of it's got a Roger Rabbit element to it. I'm sure the Coyote is, of course, animated, and everybody else is it's live action, so it's a combination Roger Rabbit style. With a great script and with James Gunn writing the script, I'm sure, and other people obviously, I'm sure that the movie had a really clever, very funny script. And here's what I don't understand. What this movie does, in my mind, and the reason it was greenlit in the fucking first place, is because it adds value. Just like Space Jam. I mean, whether you like Space Jam 1 or Space Jam, the second Space Jam, all of this stuff, because there are people that like those movies, but it adds to the continuum of a Warner Brothers property. Now, I've often said that pop culture has a half-life of 20 years. I think every 20 years it falls away from generation. But now we live in a world where when everything is instantly accessible, you have 8 billion people who have access to the libraries of these companies. And there's no reason why, like, say, Looney Tunes, which are essentially period pieces because they took place at a certain time, they'll never get old. I mean, kids, adults, you can watch Looney Tunes. I mean, I still watch Duck Amuck. If you haven't seen Duck Amuck, go watch Duck Amuck. It never gets old. It never gets old. And to me, Coyote versus Acme, I mean, again, I haven't seen it. But let's delve into, so this movie got made. It was going to come out this summer. Barbie took its slot. And all anybody knew until last week was that it was still coming out. And then something shocking occurred, as you all know, but we're going to delve into it. I got articles ready to go. And here it is. Here's the first article. Comes to us from Deadline. And let me find, I've got 4 articles to read that will take us on a journey of what has been going on. And here's the first article. Oh, by the way, look at that ad for Godzilla -1. Can I just wax rhapsodic for a minute? I don't know if you guys have seen the clips from Godzilla -1, but holy Jesus. These are the best special effects I've ever seen in a Godzilla movie. And along with Planet of the Apes and James Bond, before Star Wars came out, Godzilla was my jam, along with those other franchises. And everyone's saying this might be the best Godzilla movie ever. I love that the Japanese kind of saunter in with their $15 million Godzilla movie. It's coming out in IMAX. $15 million bucks Godzilla -1 cost. And that shit looks so dope. And of course, it had its American premiere the other night in Hollywood, in LA. And everyone's saying this is like the greatest Godzilla movie ever. Frosty, Collider Steve, Frosty, he tweeted to me, he said, or X'd to me and said, you got to see this movie. It's incredible. So, I will, probably many times. So here was the article that Anthony D'Alessandro wrote on November 9th. In another maneuver by the David Zaslav, or as we like to say, the axe of Zaslav, by the David Zaslav-run Warner Brothers Discovery to kill movies, we hear on very good authority that Warner Brothers will not be releasing the hybrid live-action Coyote versus Acme, with the conglomeration taking an estimated $30 million write-down on a $70 million production. So they spent $70 million bucks and they're going to take a $30 million write-down on a $50 billion debt? Guys, that's like an eyedropper of water into a bucket. I mean, what the hell is that going to do for you? We understand the write-down for the pick was applied to the recently reported Q3. This represents the third time that Zaslav's Warner Brothers has pulled the plug on a movie green-lighted by the previous Warner administration, the other two being the Max-destined Batgirl and the animated Scoob Holiday Hunt. Roix! The difference here is that Coyote vs. Acme is a completed movie with very good test scores, 14 points above the family norm. We're told that the cash-strapped Warners finds that it's not worth the cost to release the film theatrically or to sell to other buyers. And there are parties who are interested for their own streaming services. We hear Amazon kick the tires and light the fires. Okay, let's stop right there. We're told that the cash-strapped Warners finds that it's not worth the cost to release the film theatrically or sell to other buyers. They released The Flash, okay? I'm just saying. They released Black Adam. They released Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Those movies cost 3 times each. Well, maybe not 3 times each, but then Coyote versus Acme. And I think this is the theory that I'm going to present to you right now. I think that whatever fucking analytics, and I've been saying this on stream, so you've heard me say it before, but I'm going to say it again. Whatever fucking analytics they're running, okay? Analytics only work with, you have to analyze previous things that are like whatever it is that you're releasing. And supposedly these analytics are going to tell you what is good or what is bad. And you can make a judgment call. I am willing to bet that whatever fucking dumb analytics that they ran to tell them that their high-scoring family film Coyote versus Acme that has a lot of great talent both in front of and behind the camera, some dumb fuck ran some stupid fucking analytics. And I'll say it because this decision makes absolutely no sense. Warner Brothers has a half-century legacy, but then again, nobody at fucking Warner Brothers knows anything about Warner Brothers as evidenced by their 100th anniversary. Jesus fucking Christ. You buy all this, and it's no wonder their stock price. The people that are running the entertainment companies, all of them are, I gotta say, the only people that are smart are the people over at Sony. They know what's up. Which is tough for me to say because, you know, I made DVD special features at Fox. I won't get into who was there when that's okay. I'm just saying. Sony knows what's up. They know what's up. Paramount, I read an article today that James Wallace sent me about Paramount being on the chopping block. Of course it's on the chopping block. You know why it's on the chopping block? Because you've been making that fucking terrible Star Trek stuff, except Picard Season 3, since 2017. If your Star Trek shows were as good as your Taylor Sheridan shows, could have had something there. Wah, wah, wah. Anyway, it is unbelievable to me how the entertainment business is in free fall. But it's in free fall for this reason. Somebody ran their fucking analytics, and they decided that Coyote versus Acme, and I'm saying this without seeing the movie. I'm going out on a limb here, like I went out on a limb with Picard Season 3. I'm going out on a limb, but I had seen that multiple times. I haven't seen this, but I would just assume, just by reading the first 2 paragraphs of the fucking New Yorker article in 1990, maybe somebody should have read that, whoever did these analytics, and said, oh, that's a great premise. Do you know why people go see movies? Do you know why people read books? I've said it before on this show. The reason that I would pick a book up and decide to read it was because I'd read the back cover. I never judged a book by its front cover, even though I did read a lot of lurid horror novels that had really great covers. I always judged a book by its back cover, or if it was a hardcover, by its inner flap. If whatever I read on the back of the book, and when it came to science fiction, fantasy, and horror, if it had an intriguing kernel of an idea, something, not just there's monsters in the woods, that's fine, but if there were monsters in the woods for an interesting reason, kind of like the book The Woods Are Dark, or something like that, but if there was, then I'd be like, oh, give me a little twist, on something. And if Coyote versus Acme is one of those things where the idea that Wile E. Coyote takes the Acme company to court, that's a fucking winner. Do you know what that is? That is a pitch that Warner Brothers buys in the fucking room. Now, for those of you, here's I don't know if this is apocryphal or not, but here's how James Cameron pitched Aliens to Fox. He walks in. This is the way it might not be exactly this way, but I've read it that it was this way, and I just want to believe it's this way. Here's how James Cameron pitches Aliens to 20th Century Fox. He walks in. There's a room of all the Fox executives. He walks into a room. There's a chalkboard, right? He picks up a piece of chalk and he writes Alien on the chalkboard. And then he just puts an S next to Alien and draws 2 marks to make the S a $sign. Fucking sold. Make it rain right in the room. Coyote versus Acme is one of those ideas that, boom, you buy that in the room. It's irresistible. And when you have the right people writing a script, I mean, that can be hilarious. Hilarious. I mean, I want to see the movie just because of that. Now, it might be a huge letdown. I mean, maybe it's Cool World, which I took a very hot girl to and was really embarrassed afterwards. It worked out okay, though, in the end. But I'm just saying that it could have been great. So let's read more of this article, because this story is really interesting. The difference here is that Coyote vs. Acme is a completed movie with very good test scores, 14 points above the family norm, and we're told that the cash-strapped Warners finds that it's not worth the cost to release the film theatrically. I mean, at one point, Coyote vs. Acme was dated for theatrical release on July 21st, 2023, before getting pulled. That date was taken by Barbie, which went on to become Warner Brothers' biggest hit of all time at $1.4 billion worldwide. With the relaunch of Warner Brothers Animation in June, the studio has shifted its global strategy to focus on theatrical releases. Gosh, you think? What a shock! Movie studio decides to focus on theatrical releases. What the fuck clown car world do we live in? Yes, of course. That's what you should do. Anyway, with the relaunch of Warner Brothers Pictures Animation in June, the studio has shifted its global strategy to focus on theatrical releases, said a Warner Brothers spokesperson. With this new direction, wow, honey, we've been together, honey, for too long. That's a Prince song called New Position. I was going to sing New Direction, but never mind. With this new direction, we have made the difficult decision not to move forward with Coyote vs. Acme. We have tremendous respect for the filmmakers, cast, and crew, and are grateful for their contributions to the film. What the fuck? We're grateful for their contributions. Fuck you. They made a good movie. It's got great test scores. I mean, it has everything that you want. It has a great premise. It's part of your 50-year-old, more than 50-year-old animation brand. I mean, fucking the Animaniacs would have done a better job. You should have just climbed up in the water tower, knocked on the WB shield, and been like, guys, can you sell this movie to the public? Yes, we can. They would have done better than these fucking assholes. Anyway, how ironic. David Zaslav was involved in getting a new 3-year deal between AMPTP and SAG-AFTRA's exhibition and the Burbank studios. Were starving for a theatrical product in 2024, with several titles moving and leaving gaps. Certainly, there's money to be made on a finished film based on Looney Tunes IP. The 2021 sequel, Space Jam: A New Legacy, which wasn't very good. Theatrical day and date model on Max during the pandemic. Still, the movie made $70.5 million domestic and another $93.1 abroad for $163 million global take. That was during the pandemic, and they did day and date release, and it wasn't that good. I mean, and that movie was a hell of a lot more expensive than $70 million. I'm told that, not me, but Mr. Anthony D'Alessandro, I'm told that a Max launch of Coyote versus Acme isn't a proper platform for the movie. There's been buzz out there that the Gary Dauberman directed, James Wan produced feature take on Stephen King's Salem's Lot, once destined for a theatrical release, is going to Max as the streamer needs product due to the inventory deficiencies created by the strikes. I've heard the movie just isn't that good. I want it to be good. We saw a trailer for it at CinemaCon 2 years ago. It had some really cool stuff in it. I've heard it's not so good, but that's a bummer. Warner says in regards to Salem's Lot that the jury is still out and the brass hasn't determined the vampire pick's fate yet. Still, King is a brand name at the box office, and this is one of his classics. Yes, but it has to be good. Let's be clear. Salem's Lot, how do you fuck that up? Mark, open the window. That was some of the scariest shit I ever saw, and it was on fucking TV. Thank you, Toby Hooper. And horror works vibrantly at the box office post-pandemic. Well, unless you fuck things up like Exorcist Believer and Stephen King's Salem's Lot. Surely a $10 million bare minimum box office opening isn't the worst thing in the world for a movie that will get legged out on Max, but it boils down to whether Warner's wants to shell out $40 million in marketing costs. Bro, you guys don't have to shell out shit for marketing costs because you've caused such a hullabaloo in the press that it's done its marketing for you. Look, right now, please send me a check for talking about Coyote versus Acme. I don't get a check, but I made this whole show about your fucking dumb decisions, and I'm promoting your movie that I'm telling people that I want to see it, and I haven't seen it. I want to see it. I'm telling people right now, go see this movie. I want to see it. Directed by David Green and written by May-December scribe Sammy Birch, as well as DC Studios co-boss James Gunn and Jeremy Slater, Coyote vs. Acme is based on the Looney Tunes characters and the New Yorker humor article Coyote vs. Acme by Ian Frazier. Will Forte, John Cena, and Lana Condor star in the movie, which follows Wile E. Coyote after Acme products fail him one too many times in his dogged pursuit of the Roadrunner, and decides to hire a billboard lawyer to sue the Acme Corporation. The case pits Wile E. and his lawyer Forte against the latter's intimidating former boss, Cena, but a growing friendship between man and cartoon stokes their determination to win. What the fuck? What? Who's shelving this movie? Why are you shelving this movie? I mean, look, it might not be a great movie. I will grant you that. But that's a winning description. I'd see that fucking movie. You know, I'm an easy lay. I'm theirs to lose. Show me that shit. Who decided to scrap this film? But we'll get into it. We're told that director Green is still working with Warner's on another project that's in the works at New Line. Why the fuck, first of all, why the fuck would anybody want to devote 2 years, it usually takes about 2 years to make a studio movie, why would anyone, or if you take the time that since the article was written, it's now taken 33 years to get the movie made, and they fucking shelve it. Imagine if you're Ian, our boy Ian, who wrote the original essay that it was based on. You know, he gets to tell his family and friends, oh my God, Warner Brothers making this movie, and oh my God, James Gunn partly wrote it about Will Forte. And then he has to go home and tell his mom this. I mean, this is every movies that people want to see and they don't get out to the theaters. They'll watch it on your streaming service. Anyway, since its relaunch, Warner Brothers Animation under the new Zaslav administration is eyeing 2 picks annually starting in 2026. The division recently announced a partnership with Locksmith Animation with Bad Fairies and the Lunar Chronicles, currently in development, along with feature-length animated films based on the beloved Dr. Seuss classics, The Cat in the Hat, and an animated musical adaptation of Oh, the Places You'll Go. Okay, I love The Cat in the Hat. I'm just saying. So they're going to make The Cat in the Hat, Oh, the Places You'll Go, and a movie called Bad Fairies and Lunar Chronicles. And you've shelved Coyote versus Acme? Come on. I've got one for you. And all you kids out there, it's the Christmas season. And one of my favorite Christmas books that I would love to see turned into a movie is Robert Devereaux's Santa Steps Out. If you really had any balls, you'd make a animated phantasmagoria of Robert Devereaux's novel Santa Steps Out, which now apparently has sequels that I haven't read. But if do yourself a favor, if you can find a copy, well, I've got the original copy, but if you can find a copy of Santa Steps Out, get it. Read it. You'll never look at the Tooth Fairy the same again. Anyway, so that's the story. They shelved the movie. You figure, oh, it'll be over there and it's over, right? Shelve the movie. You know, you're putting it away, showing that nobody should ever trust anybody that works with your studio ever again to put their lives on the line. Okay, there's more to this story coming up. More to this story. Now, I'm gonna, before I move on, I'm gonna see if there's any super chats or tips from anyone, and we're gonna answer those. Tom Jr. Jackson says, first Robservations was November 18th, 2018. Wow, that's 4 days. Okay. Thank you for that, Tom Jr. Jackson. November 18th will be our anniversary show, the 5th anniversary. That's pretty cool. It was November 10th, so I missed it. Shit, 4 days late. Oh, well, we'll celebrate it in December. Really, November 10th, huh? What are you going to do? Medicated Movie Review says, mad respect, Rob. Thank you for that. I do appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's very nice. That's very nice of you to say. So, and then Kinky Sphincter has been a member of this channel. Thanks, Kinky Sphincter. Member at 34 months. Kinky Sphincter. Wow. And you know how much I like a Kinky Sphincter. A lot. Anyway, so there you go. I'm caught up there. Let's go to the next part of this story because it gets even more interesting as we move along. So here's another article. Now this actually, which was on the actual 5th anniversary of this channel. We're going to read this article. Here's a new article. Oops, already did it. Here it is. Coyote versus Acme composer Stephen Price slams Warner's for bizarre anti-art studio financial shenanigans over the picture's axing. Director Dave Green is beyond devastated. Now remember, kids, what do I always say? This is not show friends. It is show business. And if you're not doing good business, you're not, movies are a product like anything else. They're widgets, according to the studios. And now that studios are playing the Wall Street game, that's really all they are. I've always liked movies because they're a collision of art and commerce. And the fact is, people love movies. Movies are magic. Movies are dreams. Dreams cost a lot of money, more money than they've ever cost. So I get it. And that's why people are attracted to movies, not just because of what they are, but people believe that working in show business, it's sort of this mythical realm. It's maybe one of our weird Mount Olympuses that we have. If you're able to ascend to the heights in Hollywood, you get everything you want. The power of the gods. I'll tell you, that isn't true. Because at the end of the day, you know what happens? So even if you win an Academy Award and you're at the height, and you're going to the Vanity Fair party, and that's my dream. I've never been to the Vanity Fair. I would love to go. I really want to meet Graydon Carter. I really do. I always have. I'm a big fan of Vanity Fair. I read that magazine. I still read the magazine. let's face it, it's not the same as it used to be. I'm just saying, I'd love to go to their Oscar party. I've never been. It's one of my dreams. And if you get to go there, and if I get to go to the Vanity Fair Oscar party, I'd like to do bumps in the bathroom off, some starlet's breasts, go all the whole hog. But make no mistake, the next morning when you get up hungover, you're still the same person. And it drives people crazy. They come to Hollywood with all these dreams, and they think that by achieving their dreams, that they're going to somehow become a different person, that you get to find some magic door and walk through it. And it's like, oh, it's not like that. It's not like that. It's not like that for anyone. Even the most famous people in the world, it's probably more annoying than anything else to be famous. But what they get to do is work on their art. And that's what I love, the process. The process, finding projects. I mean, I'm working on our new low-budget film, White Devils. Can't wait to see how people think of this. But I'm actually editing myself. I had to body double for one of our characters who gets flogged to death with a whip called a sjambok, made out of rhinoceros hide. Nasty piece of work. But Vincent Guastini did the effects, and I shot second unit. I was trussed up. I had all this makeup on my back. It was really like 12 Years a Slave was incredibly disturbing, but it was like that. I was getting flogged and there was blood pouring down. I'm editing myself. It's not me. It's our character. It's the magic of editing, but it's still fun to do. And look, it's low budget. I'm not getting any glory from it, but it's still fun to do because I love the process. But anyway, Hollywood is all about work. It's people work really, really hard. And all we have, though, at the end is our movies. And the thing is, if you're working for a studio whose business is making films, making profit from movies, and by the way, making profit from movies is not easy. You might think it is because we only hear about, they made $1 billion at the box office. It's incredibly difficult. And there's many different revenue streams, and it's harder than ever to make profits from movies. So remember, it's a tough business, a very tough business. But Warner Brothers is in the business of making money. So I understand they have a huge debt load that they're trying to, for their shareholders. It's all about shareholders, debt load and everything. And what's dangerous, it's really funny. I keep thinking about Wall Street. Gordon Gekko, who like Blue Star Airlines. He bought Blue Star Airlines and he was going to part it out, sell it off. And Bud Fox was, says to him, Gordon, like, why you're going to wreck this company? Why are you going to do that? And he's like, because it's wreckable, because he's going to make more money wrecking the company. He doesn't want to build anything. All these guys want to make some money okay, what are you going to do when you're rich? Okay, great. You've got an American Express Black Card. I appreciate that. I respect that you did enough work to get an American Express Black Card. But the more important thing is when you get up on Saturday morning, you pour yourself a cup of coffee. Do you enjoy being alive? Do you like living in your own skin? That's what's really important. Anyway, let's get back. I don't even know what I'm saying. I'm off track. Let me get back on. I'm rambling. Let's go back on track to this article. Another article, Anthony D'Alessandro, November 10th. My point was, I understand studios want to make money. That's their job. That's why they make movies. Their product that they sell are movies and TV and entertainment. They want to make money. Warner Brothers could have made a lot more money if they put out Blu-rays and 4K retransfers of their old catalog titles for their 100th anniversary. I don't know, things like Excalibur. Everybody who has a 4K disc player would have bought that. What about The Right Stuff and Dolby Atmos? You know what the problem with Warner Brothers is? They look at me and go, what's Excalibur? Fucking studio. Jesus fucking Christ. David Zaslav, fucking dumbass. I'm sorry, man. Anyway, he doesn't. If you told him, hey, The Right Stuff is one of my favorite Warner Brothers movies, he'd look at you and go, The Right Stuff based on that song? Coyote versus Acme composer Stephen Price has blasted the David Zaslav cost-cutting Warner Brothers Discovery Administration for axing the Looney Tunes hybrid live-action animated film. Price, who won an original score Oscar for Warner Brothers' tentpole Gravity in 2014, took to X to say, I had a lot of fun scoring Coyote versus Acme. So, okay, we have an Academy Award winner who scored Coyote versus Acme, who's now going on social media and saying this. I had a lot of fun scoring Coyote versus Acme, and no one. Here's another thing: when you're doing what Warner Brothers is doing, when they're writing a film off, this is the insidious part. Everything disappears, every shred. So the movie needs to be like disappeared. It's literally like Jimmy Hoffa. They're going to put it all into a 50-gallon drum, fill it with concrete, and bury it underneath whatever skyscraper is being built in downtown LA. It all goes away. All of the work, all the people did. And on movies now, with all the effects people, all the animators, I mean, all we ever get, the satisfaction that people make movies get, is to see our movies connect with the public. More than money, do you know what people, I mean, we all like making money from our work. But when let me tell you something. When somebody walks up to you and you've made a movie that they like, it means the world to hear it, especially 25 years later or 30 years later. I worked on a movie called Arcade for Full Moon. It was the first movie I edited with Peter Billingsley. And I still get people go, I love that movie when I was a kid. It never gets old. But anyway, Price, who won an original score Oscar for Warner Brothers' tentpole Gravity in 2014, took to X to say, I had a lot of fun scoring Coyote versus Acme, as no one will be able to hear it now due to bizarre anti-art studio financial shenanigans. I will never understand. Here's a bit of behind-the-scenes footage of our meep, meep Roadrunner choir with apologies to Tchaikovsky. Okay, listen to this. There's a meep, meep Roadrunner choir with apologies to Tchaikovsky. That alone intrigues me. I want to hear that and see that. And then here's the composer's tweet. You can find it on X. I won't play this because I don't want it to be like disappeared, but you can listen to this on X. Stephen Price, give him a follow. Stephen B. Price. Fielding his followers' replies. Wait. See, now look what happened. I missed all that. I hate when this happens. Okay, here we go. Fielding his followers' replies, Price added, animation totally complete and looked great. The whole film was mixed and finished, as well as, this is a weird one for sure. Good film, scrubbed from existence. As we reported yesterday, Warner Brothers shelved the finished movie for both a theatrical or a Max release, taking an estimated $30 million write-down instead on the $70 million production. This, despite the fact that the 2024 theatrical release calendar needs movies due to the actors' strike delaying several titles. It's the third time the Zaslav-run administration has axed a movie, the other two being Max's Batgirl and Scoob Holiday Haunt, which weren't fully polished at the time of their cancellation. I mean, this was a finished movie. The unplugging of Batgirl brought public ire against the studio by the movie's filmmakers, Adil El Arbi and Bilal Fallah, as well as its stars. However, this time around, Warner Brothers made sure that they had secured a deal with Coyote versus Acme filmmaker David Green, who is working on a New Line project. Okay, let's break that down. You're a director, and you've made a movie for Warner Brothers, a $70 million feature. Now, hey, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate, and they're going to allow you to make another movie. And then they shelve your first movie? I mean, I don't know what kind of, maybe somebody needs to read, go back to Dale Carnegie or read How to Win Friends and Influence People. This is not the way, when I worked at Warner Brothers in feature production back in, when I say this all the time, name drop shit, but I'll tell you, when I was back at Warner Brothers, Bob Daly and Terry Semel ran the studio still. That was when Bruce Berman and Mark Canton were there, Lucy Fisher was there, Lisa Henson was there, Alan Stewart was there, Bob Brassel was there, Tom LaSalle was there, Courtney Valenti was in the story department. I mean, it was people that went on to do great things. Lorenzo de Bonaventura started working there when I was there. The filmmakers, they had, at Warner Brothers, you had Richard Donner and Joel Silver. You had Silver Pictures and Richard Donner. Their offices were kind of in a big, like an O, but it was kind of a flat O, a rectangular O. Silver Pictures was here. Donner's was here. There was a walkway in between, and the story departments on either side. So they had offices on the lot. Clint Eastwood, Malpazzo Productions. He had great. They're still on the lot. Phil DeGuerre, who made the 80s Twilight Zone. He was on the lot. You had all of these filmmakers that were on the lot that had deals. And Warner Brothers, why do you think Stanley Kubrick had a deal with Warner Brothers? After he made 2001 with MGM, he went over to Warner Brothers and he made Clockwork Orange, Barry Lyndon, The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, and Eyes Wide Shut. He was there from the early 70s all the way to almost the 2000s when he passed away in 97. Warner Brothers was known for the relationships they had with filmmakers, for better or for worse. So this kind of thing, you want to have an ongoing relationship with a filmmaker, a director, and then you're going to can his first movie? I can't imagine, other than getting cancer and fucking dying, I can't imagine something more demoralizing than the studio you're working for that you just made a deal with to make your second movie shelves your first fucking movie. What does that do to someone's ego? I mean, I'd rather have erectile dysfunction for the rest of my life than, well, maybe not. Well, because I could still be a cunning linguist. But I would not want to have that. And then you have to work for them again, knowing that, wait, I made a movie that scored in the 90s and you're shelving it? What, do I have to make a movie that gets bonus points or does the extra credit question on the test so I can get 103% instead of 100? Is that the only way that you're going to let me have my movie come out theatrically or even on Max? I can't even imagine that. Anyway, Green had the following to say on X. For 3 years, I was lucky enough to make a movie about Wile E. Coyote, the most persistent, passionate, and resilient character of all time. I was surrounded by a brilliant team who poured their souls into this project for a year. We were embraced by test audiences who rewarded us with fantastic scores, and I'm beyond devastated by Warner Brothers' description. Price's colleague and UK composer Daniel Pemberton, who has written several Warner Brothers scores such as Ocean's 8, Birds of Prey, and The Man from U.N.C.L.E., blasted, "This behavior is not only terrible, but any half-decent creative is going to think twice, signing up huge chunks of their life to throw everything they have at a project from studios that seem pretty cavalier about ever letting that work get seen. Warner Brothers is playing a terrible long game." Really bad. Discussing Films wrote, "Many filmmakers have come out praising Coyote vs. Acme after Warner Brothers just shelved it for a $30 million write-off. The best of its kind since Roger Rabbit. The leads are super likable. It's beautifully shot. The animation is great. And the ending makes everyone fucking cry." That was Ben David Grabinski. So there you go. I mean, it's amazing to me. You're running a studio. You're David Zaslav. And believe it, look, I was one of those people that thought David Zaslav would do a great job. I thought he was going to come there and not interfere with creatives. But here's the thing. If you're going to do business, you really should understand the business that you're in. And Hollywood is a business, first and foremost, of relationships. And Hollywood is also a business where, look, everyone's a fucking asshole. And as William Goldman, the great screenwriter, wrote in his book Adventures in the Screen Trade in the 80s, even if you don't work in Hollywood, if you want to read a great book about Hollywood, please read William Goldman, Adventures in the Screen Trade. It's a great, wildly entertaining book. Many of the references will be lost on you because it was written 40 years ago, but still, it's really great. But he says something that has never been more true than today. No one knows anything in Hollywood. Some people do, but he says no one knows anything, and it's true. And I don't think I've seen people that know less than today. And the people that work at Warner Brothers really, really don't know very much, judging by the kinds of things that they're doing. And certainly the people in their home video department know fuck all about their own catalog, which is unfortunate. They should let George Felsenstein run the entirety of home video, but he would never say that. I can say that for him. But it's just, it's frustrating. So there we have people. There we go. By the way, Anonymous sends in a tip and says, "Do you think Disney is going to drop the Kang Dynasty storyline like it said in the report today? Thoughts on it?" Listen, I think Disney is in a world of hurt, and I think no one cares. Honestly, if you were to ask me, I got to tell you, when I was at Comic-Con and you had Tom Hiddleston come out dressed as Loki in Hall H, I was sitting in the back because they were going to announce the name of the second Avengers movie, and I had my fingers crossed that it was going to be Age of Ultron. I don't know why it got in my head that it was. I don't know if I'd heard it. I just was sitting there, and he comes out dressed as Loki. Here I am with Glorious Purpose. Fucking 6,000 people were going bananas. That was the greatest Hall H presentation I've seen of all. That Marvel presentation at Comic-Con, and when he announced Age of Ultron, bananas. People went bananas. I was one of them. I was going bananas. I felt like I was looking around going, oh, I'm this old. I shouldn't be this excited. It was incredible. I love the MCU. It's completely fucked up. The MCU right now, as I put it the other day, is in a cul-de-sac, and they don't know they're in a cul-de-sac. They have to turn around and back out. And by the way, nobody would care. Here's the interesting thing right now. Nobody cares where the MCU is. You could start up a movie and have it take place right after Endgame. No one, other than the fact that, okay, Guardians of the Galaxy tied off the Guardians movies great, but you could have made those movies without the MCU. Spider-Man No Way Home was great, but Peter Parker is where's Peter now? Peter's kind of wherever he wants to be. You're cut off. I mean, the multiverse was closed off. Doctor Strange is out there with Charlize Theron, but other than that, who cares? I mean, I like Shang-Chi a lot. The Eternals, they've made the Eternals completely irrelevant, which is really too bad because I really kind of like that movie. But they've gone in and none of their TV shows, other than Loki's now the god of stories. Okay, I love that. That's cool. That doesn't have any bearing on anything. Where Marvel is right now, nothing they've done in phases 4 and 5 matter. They really don't. If they were to just kind of forget those and move forward, maybe if they can retool Brave New World into something that's really cool, they could start there. And if they can fix Brave New World and make it a banger, make it a banger. That would be amazing. And then start from there. If they can make it if they have Winter Soldier-esque Brave New World, and it kicks off something that can lead into the Civil War and lead in. Right now, Marvel should just start over. The Kang did not work. They didn't do a good job with Kang. All he does is keep getting defeated. Who cares? I like Jonathan Majors a lot, but they really fucked Kang up. I mean, we are getting one Marvel movie in 2024, which is Wolverine, Deadpool 3, whatever they're going to call it. Deadpool threesome. And that movie, they can, you know what's funny? If they were to have Deadpool, like, here's how Deadpool 3 begins. You just have Deadpool walk out and he says something to the effect of, in my universe, we get the MCU movies too. And I can't believe where phases 4 and 5 went. I've got something better in mind. And that's how they open Deadpool 3. And we go from there and they hey man, it's a reset. Whatever. So it wouldn't surprise me. I have no knowledge about it. I don't know what their plans are, but nobody would care. At this point, nobody would care. They can leave those movies. They can use the characters when they want to, if they're well written and all that. Get Marcus and McFeely back, maybe. And you could do something good to write something. Marcus and McFeely are the writers. Get them back to do something. They wrote Infinity War and Endgame and Winter Soldier and Civil War. Nobody would care. I'm telling you, Deadpool 3, if it's the banger that I think it's going to be, that we all think it's going to be, that we all know it's going to be, after that, you can go anywhere. Because there is literally no excitement about the MCU right now. There isn't. Nobody cares. Oh, another Marvel movie. They need to give us, and the thing about Deadpool 3 is that it's not really an MCU movie. It's, make no mistake, it's a Fox X-Men movie. Now, they're going to bring, I guess, the characters into the MCU, but it's not that. It's the conclusion of the Fox X-Men saga. Call it what you want. And they can go anywhere after that. I mean, hell, they could even use it and tie off everything. They could just say that all of these Phase 4 and Phase 5 movies took place in a different universe. I don't know. But Anonymous, it's an interesting question. It is an interesting question. Now, there's more to this saga. So after the outcry about Coyote versus Acme, Warner Brothers did an about face, even though they've already reported it and taken the write down for Q3, they said in the article. So because they realized, somebody must have realized how fucking dumb this move really was. So somebody realized that. Now look at this. This from yesterday. Coyote versus Acme. Warner Brothers setting up screenings for streamers of axed Looney Tunes film. Amazon, a prime candidate. Screenings are being set up this week for streamers Amazon Prime, Apple, and Netflix to check out and potentially acquire Warner Brothers' axed Looney Tunes movie Coyote vs. Acme after the studio's phone rang off the hook the entire weekend from angry filmmakers and talent reps over their third feature film kill after Batgirl and Scoob Holiday Haunt. The more egregious Hollywood sin with Coyote vs. Acme is that it's a finished film intended for theatrical release while the other two movies were still in the works. And it got great test scores. Of those kicking the tires, even though no deals have been drafted, I hear Amazon is the leading contender, given the fact that Courtney Valenti, who worked at Warner Brothers when I worked there in 1990, was a big Courtney Valenti, she was lovely. The head of film, streaming, and theatrical for Amazon Studios and MGM, was a big champion and linchpin for the movie while she was president of production and development at Warner Brothers. All of this boils down to head of Amazon Studios Jen Psaki's sign-off, I understand. During the pandemic, Prime Video acquired Sony's family titles Hotel Transylvania 4 and Cinderella, among other movies. Amazon has been known to take finished films off the table for $100 million and turn them into events for Prime Video, which they could do. I just think whoever picks this up has got to release it theatrically, put a big marketing campaign behind it, and make at least $100 million at the box office. I know that's not enough, but anyway. With the actor strike just ending and everyone's streamers and theatrical schedule in need of product, it seems foolish to have a studio like Warner Brothers leave a branded asset like Coyote vs. Acme lying around and taking a $30 million take write-off on the $70 million production. I agree. It's so weird. With Amazon now in the theatrical game, it will be interesting to see if Warner Brothers actually allows the streamer to theatrically release Coyote vs. Acme, since the Burbank lot is too cheap to do so given its dire financial straits. Amazon also is a great landing pad for Coyote vs. Acme, as the studio has 3 upcoming movies with star John Cena: Heads of State, Ricky Stanicky, and Grand Death Lotto. Wow, that sounds interesting. Also, during a very noisy weekend for the movie on social media with Coyote vs. Acme and Gravity Oscar winner composer calling Warner Brothers a bizarre anti-art studio financial shenanigans I will never understand. Some have told me that the killing of Coyote vs. Acme didn't come from Warner Brothers Discovery's CEO David Zaslav himself. Rather, the blame should be set at the feet of Warner Brothers motion picture bosses Mike DeLuca and Pam Abdi, and Warner Brothers' new animation head, Bill Damashki, who are being made the scapegoats. The motives here were to protect the Looney Tunes IP and also scrub the studio of product developed by the previous administration. Okay, I've never understood it. If you work at a company and the previous administration made something that's good, fucking release that shit and take credit for it. Like, this is such a weird... I mean, it happens all the time. That's why we never got Eric Jedrenson's Star Trek movie, Star Trek The Beginning, because that was when studio heads left. And we got J.J. Abrams' Star Trek movies instead. Too bad, Carrie McCluggage. If only you could have been there and made that movie. Alas. They could still do it now. They own it. Of course, they don't have any money either. They're probably going to get sold. The only thing wrong with that narrative is that DeLuca and Abdi never had any previous offense of killing a previous administration's finished film or movies. Not until landing at Warner Brothers. As my mother used to say, there's no such thing as coincidence. Also, we understand that DeLuca and Abdi haven't seen the finished Coyote vs. Acme. First of all, how do How do actually, I know how studio executives don't see anything. I could tell you the story of an actor. I'm not going to say who it is. An actor was working on a show that is executive produced by a guy who runs a lot of things. And that actor who was on this show has never met the executive producer who's in charge. It's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable how, you know what the interesting thing about Hollywood is? The people in Hollywood at the top do the least amount of actual work on these projects. Hollywood's a really interesting business because many of the people that, not all, one of my favorite people, he helped me 25 years ago. He looked at a movie I'd made when I met him when he became an executive at Warner Brothers, Lorenzo de Bonaventura. He's one guy, if somebody ever said to me, hey, I'm going to get in business with Lorenzo de Bonaventura, I would say, that guy, stellar dude. Stellar dude. I'm sure there's people that don't like him or whatever, but I can tell you from my perspective, he's an executive that went from being an executive to being a producer. Most of the people at Hollywood that are making these decisions have never actually made movies. They work at companies that make movies, and they hire people that make the movies, but they've never made movies. So they don't know how to make them. And it's such a weird thing. And you do end up getting this crazy thing where you as the movie maker have to deal with people that have never actually made movies. I know it's crazy. It's counterproductive. It's just weird. Anyway, studios take tax write-downs on completed movies all the time. Remember Paramount's $115 million write-down of animated pick monster trucks in advance of its 2016 theatrical release? It made $64 million worldwide. Go watch the trailer for Monster Trucks and ask yourself, how did that get made? I never saw that. I wanted to, though. The new Warner Brothers Discovery administration needs to have a come to Jesus with itself. Realize that if there's anything worse than taking a feature theatrical slate day and date on Max and keeping talent and filmmakers in the dark on that, it's axing. By the way, that's what they did. The previous AT&T administration did that. They decided during the pandemic, you know what? We're going to make all of our movies, including movies like Dune, we're going to make them all day and date on Max, on HBO Max. I mean, these are decisions that are based on nothing that anybody who ever worked in the entertainment business are making. These are weird Wall Street decisions, analytics decisions. They're looking at spreadsheet decisions. So fucking dumb. And so anyway, that's what they're referring to. A come to Jesus moment. Realize that if there's anything worse than taking a feature theatrical slate day and date on Max and keeping talent and filmmakers in the dark on that, it's axing finished theatrical films, and even ones that have a ton of footage in the can. Yeah, we hear you that the previous regime's 70 million greenlight movies are too high a cost for Max's direct-to-streaming, but why wasn't it decided early on by Warner Brothers last week that a finished movie would be sold anyway to a streamer and that money gained on that versus burying it in a vault forever? Coyote versus Acme has reported high test scores that indicate it's a worthy asset somewhere. While Warner Brothers Discovery CFO Gunnar Wiedenfels said that the media's coverage of Batgirl's cancellation was blown out of proportion back in September of 2022, I guess he wasn't seeing or hearing the harsh criticism from the Hollywood creative community and the film's creatives and talent, both on social and by phone. Of course, because the people that are making these decisions don't fucking know. They don't know. They're in charge of so much money. You'd think that they would, but it's unbelievable to me. It's unbelievable. I've been on the outside. Maybe that's why I've liked my little niche. I can sit there and make my little projects and do whatever. I'll never get rich. I'll never be famous. But it doesn't matter. I don't have to deal with people canceling a great movie I made for 2 fucking years. Also, what does Coyote versus Acme move by Warner Brothers say to DC bosses Peter Safran and James Gunn? Can their movies or projects be killed at a last minute's notice? Along with Chris DeFaria, Gunn is a producer on Coyote versus Acme. The Guardians of the Galaxy architect was a co-scribe on the movie, co-screenwriter. We understand that the filmmaker-friendly Gunn and Safran's green lights moving forward are bona fide and not in danger, or bona fide, and not in danger of any tax tricks, or so they say now. The Looney Tunes brand isn't Harry Potter. Well, it's been around for a long time. I mean, the Looney Tunes brand, remember, mostly known for their short subjects. The brand has been turned upside down, reinvented, and reset several times during the course of its 90-year-plus history at Warner Brothers. Certainly a family movie that grosses between $160 million to $200 million worldwide wouldn't do damage to the studio, but rather play directly to the audience it's supposed to play to. Yes. Yes, that's correct. And I don't know what to say. But there's a final bit to this story that happened today, and I think it's hilarious, and I can't wait to jump into what it is. Grendel Prime won. Look, anybody who's a Matt Wagner Grendel fan, I'm a fan of you. Grendel Prime was interesting. Grendel versus Batman, am I right? Grendel Prime 1 says, happy to be a new member. The final straw was The Woods Are Dark. Richard Lehman, still have my tattered high school copy. Can't wait for the first chat with Rob. Cheers. Okay, first of all, Grendel Prime 1, kudos to you. You know, it's funny. So Dave Parker, who directed The Hills Run Red, who just finished a new movie, Dave Parker and I talked about, I would love to produce The Woods Are Dark and have Dave direct it. Richard Lehman wrote that book. I have a slipcase version of it somewhere up here. I would love to make that movie. I think that movie would be baller. But now it's like impossible because any book that was in Grady Hendrix Paperbacks from Hell, which is like half my paperback collection, it's impossible to get the rights to those books. Maybe I should call a certain horror producer I know, but then people are going to be like, who's going to write the script? We'll get Scout to write the script. We'll bring the team that made, from the people that made The Hills Run Red comes The Woods Are Dark. So thanks for becoming a member. It would be great. I'm glad because I throw out these references willy-nilly. Sometimes I don't even know what they are. I don't remember what they are. I just throw them out. But I'm glad that you read that book. Did you read Off Season? Remember that? Off Season? If you guys haven't read that movie or that book, it was back in the 80s, the horror splatterpunk. Get some splatter. You need to get some splatterpunk. Here's okay, Off Season's a good one, but as I've always said, since we're talking horror, get John. If you want to read the ultimate heavy metal band from hell, one of my favorite horror novels I ever read, read The Scream. It's called The Scream, not Scream, but The Scream, by John Skipp and Craig Spector. That is one of the most fun, hardcore, balls to the wall, fucking metal horror novels I ever read. So get that. Woods Are Dark's good too, but there you go. Sean Hoover says Taylor Swift should buy Wile E. Coyote and promote it and make $300 million. That's, you know what? Taylor Swift, that would be hilarious because Taylor Swift has a deal with AMC. If Taylor Swift were to buy Coyote versus Acme, she could go to AMC, and AMC they made deals with all these other theaters and make their own ad campaign, and Taylor Swift could go out. That's a great idea, Sean Hoover. We should start a letter writing campaign. Taylor Swift and her people, her company should buy Coyote versus Acme. I mean, hey, if they were going to write it down, if they're going to take the $30 million write-off, offer them $40 million. Go in there, buy it, release it theatrically through AMC, and make a fortune. Good on them. I love that. Now let's come to the end of today's story. The end of today's story. This has a very interesting ending. And this comes to us today, once again, from Anthony D'Alessandro. And here we come to the end. Well, it's not the end of the saga yet because we don't know who's going to buy the movie. If someone's going to buy it, we don't know. Coyote versus Acme melodrama. Congressman bashes Warner Brothers Discovery for scrapping fully made films for tax breaks and calls for a federal probe. Texas Congressman Joaquin Castro has taken to X to slam Warner Brothers Discovery for axing, the axe of Zaslav, for axing the $70 million Coyote versus Acme for a reported $30 million tax write-off. That said, as we first reported, the studio is changing course this week and screening the film for potential buyers. Amazon Prime, a leading contender, Apple, and Netflix. This pivot by Studio Brass was made after a weekend in which the studio phone rang off the hook as the creative community complained about the canceling of the finished film. There was also an outcry by the Pic's composer, Stephen Price, among others online. And we already read that. This is what the senator said. As someone remarked, as a Justice Department and FTC revise their antitrust guidelines, they should review this conduct. As someone remarked, it's like burning down a building for the insurance money. And he added, the Warner Brothers Discovery tactic of scrapping fully made films for tax breaks is predatory and anti-competitive. As the Justice Department and the Federal Trade Commission revise their antitrust guidelines, they should review this conduct. As someone remarked, it's like burning down a building for the insurance money. That's Joaquin Castro at Joaquin Castro, Texas. So it's at JoaquinCastrotx on November 14th. Warner Brothers had no statement regarding today's X blast by Castro. He's a Democrat, by the way, in Texas. Several sources have told us that in a cost-cutting, debt-laden environment as Warner Brothers Discovery, that it's not CEO David Zaslav to blame here for the axing of the Warner Brothers axing of the film. Warner Brothers motion picture bosses Michael DeLuca and Pam Abdi and the new animation head Bill Damaschke are the ones who made. Is it Damaschke? Maybe it is. The ones who made the decision. This, despite the fact that it's not a production chief's bandwidth to worry about tax write-downs on a movie. That's for accounting and finance to sweat over. I have to say that I would be very surprised that Mike DeLuca would do something like this. Very surprised. By the way, Mike DeLuca, you want to hear an interesting fact about Mike DeLuca? Mike DeLuca wrote the screenplay for John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness while he was at New Line. Or maybe he wrote it before he was at. No, I think because I met Mike DeLuca when he first started at New Line on the set late night, actually in the production office of the set of Leatherface Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3. See, somebody else I met as a kid that got way more successful than me. You go, Mike DeLuca, and I don't believe you did this. The new Warner Brothers Discovery administration doesn't want the problem of the previous administration's green lights, and a $70 million, that's a cost too high for a movie to simply skip theatrical and head to Max. While it's not, it's production. I already wrote that. Blah, blah. You know what? I'm getting a little punchy. While it's not in a production boss's nature to worry about tax write-offs, they realize that there's a lot of stress over at Warner Brothers Discovery to win in the wake of having the highest-grossing movie in the studio's history and year-to-date with Barbie at $1.4 billion worldwide. A severe financial savings mentality exudes at Warner Brothers. First of all, here's what I don't understand. Here's a question I'm going to pose to you imagination connoisseurs. If you had a movie, Coyote versus Acme, that had done well, and it was supposed to open the day that Barbie opened, why would you not put the trailer for that movie in front of Barbie? Why? I would think that Coyote versus Acme, if there's just the idea alone, would get you primed to watch Barbie. Why did we not get a trailer? The more you know. Remember, it was supposed to come out theatrically and they moved it. So I call shenanigans. Anyway, I'm just saying. A severe financial savings mentality exudes at Warner Brothers, and if a film looks too risky to spend marketing on, execs there don't want to stick their necks out and have a lackluster result and be blamed for a green light that wasn't there. I'll tell you what. I'll take the risk. I'm perfectly willing to pay back. I'm willing to go to Warner Brothers and spend $30 or $40 million marketing Coyote versus Acme. And if we don't make the money back, I'll owe the studio. How about that? You can come on this. I'll bring everybody involved with the movie on this show for free. You don't have to pay me anything. I already get Warner Archive discs for free. So, hey, I'm willing to support you guys. I support Warner Archive. I love Warner Brothers. I've always considered it my home. You know, I worked there when I was a young whippersnapper. I did get to produce the Hills Run Red for them back in 2008 and for Joel Silver, my old boss. So that was fun too. So Warner Brothers, whatever I can do to help Coyote versus Acme. Hell, I'd love to have all of them. Everybody, I'll bring all the execs on here. Come on the show, everyone. I know I only have 60,000 subscribers. Let's get me up to 100 and I can get David Zaslav to come here. So I've lost all these subscribers over the last month, but hey, I'm still here shooting. So I don't know. Whatever I can do. No one wants to stick their necks out. This is the problem. Everyone in Hollywood, man. What happened to the Mavericks? What happened to the people that, you know, like Alan Ladd Jr.? You know, George Lucas makes American Graffiti. By the way, what the fuck happened to the American Graffiti 4K disc? Who approved that transfer? Just saying. But anyway, so George Lucas, Universal thinks that American Graffiti is not going to be a hit. Turns out to be a big hit. Does Universal make Star Wars? No. Alan Ladd Jr. at Fox, he's like, yeah, you know, I guess we'll take a risk on this Lucas kid. You know, it's kind of like Bob Shea at New Line when Peter Jackson showed Bob Shea his 5-minute reel about the Lord of the Rings movies. Peter Jackson was about to get on a plane, go home to New Zealand, and pull the plug on making the Lord of the Rings movies. And he was going to make 2 Lord of the Rings movies with Miramax. Thank God that didn't happen. It's always so funny when the weird stuff happens. You know, I guess if you do the thumbs down like this, you can make it rain. I don't know if it's going to rain. Will it rain? No. Well, I still love you anyway. But the so Peter Jackson shows Bob Shea. It's his last stop before he gets on a plane to go to New Zealand to pull the plug on pre-production on Lord of the Rings. He shows Bob Shea the 5-minute reel, and Bob Shea looks at Peter Jackson. Lights come up. Bob Shea's like, "Aren't there 3 Lord of the Rings books?" And fucking bets the farm. Bets his entire company. New Line put out the first Evil Dead back in the early 80s, man. He built that company up for 20 years. He gave you Freddy. A lot of great comedies. Gave us Blade. Come on, man. That was a risk. He bet the farm. Where's that kind of mentality? Because people don't know. They don't know. People don't know the business. They don't know the business, so they can't because they really don't know. They don't even know. I am sure that David Zaslav's probably thinking still to himself, what the fuck is Coyote versus Acme? What is it? I bet he probably knows now, but I bet he didn't know. Like, what is it? Everybody knows what Coyote and Acme is. I see the word Acme. You can't even see the word Acme now. Like, some cities have like Acme supplies or whatever. Every time I hear or see the word Acme, I see the fucking Coyote. I see Wile E. Coyote. Wile E. Coyote and Acme go together like peanut butter and chocolate. Anyway, studio executives, though, not in their nature to cancel a movie, are getting a free pass from the top down to avoid any risk, and that's being taken advantage of, as unhealthy as it is, says one source with a knowledge on Coyote versus Acme. Also, the current administration at Warner Brothers Discovery is trying to protect the Looney Tunes brand. What? That is so lame. Are you kidding me? If you made a Roger Rabbit-esque movie called Coyote versus Acme, all it does is make the brand better. Do you think Space Jam 2 protected your brand? Give me a fucking break. That is such a lame fucking excuse by somebody that doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. I hate that shit. I mean, if you're working there, I get it. Figure out a way to make movies for cheaper. How about that? Why don't you do what Blumhouse does? Of course, don't pay $400 million for the rights to Exorcist, but that's just me. I don't even know why Warner Brothers, Exorcist is a Warner Brothers movie. I know it's Morgan Creek now owns it, but whatever. Because you could then say they did make Exorcist 2. I know. The current administration at Warner Brothers Discovery is trying to protect the Looney Tunes brand, despite the fact that the 93-year-old property has been rebooted and turned inside out across shorts, the big screen, TV, and streaming. Animaniacs, anyone? Steven Spielberg knew what to do with that brand. Other producers and execs at Warner's are aware of what went on here, and they do not want the place to be known as must avoid by reps, talent, and filmmakers. We hear that they're protecting their turf and the projects to the talent they've made deals with. Say what you will about the theatrical day-and-date mess, but at least all those finished movies were seen by the widest audience possible during the pandemic, added one talent rep. Back in April, Castro was one of the 4 Democratic lawmakers who called on the Justice Department to investigate Warner Brothers Discovery after its Batgirl cancellation, claiming that the merged company has harmed workers and reduced consumer choice. I guess they don't want me to read this article anymore. It was at the end of the article anyway. Anyway, so there you hear, there's an overview of the saga of Warner Brothers and Coyote versus Acme. All I can tell you is that, boy, it's frustrating. It's frustrating to see what happens. It's a bummer. I mean, it really is. It's a bummer. Grendel Prime 1 says, sure, I read it. The first scene was whoa-ho, vivat. Yes, I love that you're a Grendel fan. By the way, can somebody please put out like a Grendel omnibus? I'd really love a hardcover Grendel omnibus. Is that too much to ask for? I mean, you could do, the Christine Spar, the Hunter Rose. I mean, I don't know how. It'd be a big fucking omnibus. But, I can't find my Kamiko. Is it issue 38? I'm like missing one of the rarest Grendel issues. I know I had it, but anyway, I know that's totally an aside from what this show's about. But, I wanted to talk about this story because it seems to me, because Hollywood is in such a mess right now. And I honestly believe it's a mess because the people that are controlling the purse strings, that are running the studios, are completely disconnected from the product that they're making. I honestly believe that. And it's been happening. There's a lot of drift going on. And look, we're in a position now where movies are no longer, when I was growing up, they were the only entertainment. I mean, I love concerts, but movies that was the thing. That was, now, of course, we have, I've talked about, I believe that there's a fundamental shift that's happened in entertainment. Call it the poles have switched places. It used to be that people were looking out for their entertainment. Now everybody wants their entertainment. I mean, when you watch TikTok video, you're the star. What is it? Main protagonist syndrome? Is that what people are calling it now? Everybody is the main protagonist of what they believe is an ongoing story that, look, I'm guilty of this too. I'm doing it right now. Documenting their lives on TikTok so they're their own protagonist. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but at the end of the day, people aren't looking out anymore. They're certainly not looking out to become educated. People are only interested in what they're interested in. It used to be, and I think that's also because people they're not... Look, I would say this to all of you who watch this channel, if I could offer some Rob Burnett life advice, become a citizen of the world. And what I mean by that is, put your fucking phone down and go out into the world. Experience people, places, sensations. Go places where you don't have to take a picture every place you go. Or if you're going to take a picture, take one picture. But go out, go get a passport, go to Europe, get a Eurail pass, and get lost for a while. Go somewhere where you don't know what it is. Get on a train and say, you know what? In an hour and a half, whatever the first stop is, I'm going to get off. I'm going to see what's out there. It's like Frances McDormand in Almost Famous. Take a look around. See what's out there. Become a citizen of the world. I feel like everybody is stewing in their own juices and all they're doing is getting angry. We live on this amazing planet where there's amazing people of every shape, size, color, creed, you name it. They're all out there. And yet all of them want to scream and yell about, look at me, look at me, look at me. Those people, avoid them. Become a citizen of the world. That's my advice. Because Americans are crawling up their own asses. And it's happening everywhere to everyone. You know what? Fuck all that. Go become a citizen of the world. Do it, learn whatever you can. Experience whatever you can experience. Find people that you've never met before and sit down and have a meal with them. Talk to them. They might be diametrically opposed to whatever views you have, but talk to them anyway. Just listen to them. Don't tell them what they think is wrong. Just listen. Try and understand them. Just go out in the world. Because now people have forgotten how to do that. And it's tearing us all apart. Because people who are citizens of the world, they're always looking out there. They're always looking to see. They're seekers. Hey, what's around this next corner? Maybe there's an interesting cafe that serves some kind of specialty that I've never heard of. You never know. I'll tell you one thing, though. When you become a citizen of the world, your life will be better. You'll have more fun. You'll be happier. You'll be more excited about things. I'm just telling you. Mikey Lito says, 4 words about Acme. Who framed Roger Rabbit? I know, right? And people are talking about it. And Who Framed Roger Rabbit was great. So you know what, everyone? I think I'm going to bring this show to a close. I hope you enjoyed it. It was fun to do. And I'll get back to reading letters later. But, Delta Code says, citizen of the world means nothing to me. Got to define it or something. Okay, well, all right, I would say this. Being a citizen of the world means go out and experience what the world has to offer. Have the attitude that there's a million different places out there that you haven't seen, people you haven't met, things you haven't experienced, food you haven't tasted, smells you haven't smelled, sensations you haven't had. And the only way you can go out and experience those things is if you go out to experience those things. And the world is a rich, great place to be. And I think that, the attitude, it's more of an attitude. It's more of a state of mind. To be a citizen of the world is to go out anywhere on the planet and find something to stimulate and enjoy. Stimulate yourself and enjoy. I think that's what being a citizen of the world is. Most of all, meeting new people, doing new things, experiencing everything that life has to offer. Because let me tell you, there is amazing stuff out in the world, and we're not experiencing it. We really aren't. And to be a citizen of the world is to look outside yourself. Is to forget what you think. You already know what you think. Don't worry. Don't worry about other people and what they think about you. What you want to do is go out and experience what the world has to offer. And you'll see with that kind of an attitude, you'll meet people, you'll have experiences with other people that you can't even believe that you're going to have. That's my advice. So, and I'll tell you something. I've often said, when I say a citizen of the world, that doesn't mean you have to go to the other side of the planet either. I've often said, okay, play this game. Here's a game and report back to me. I've said this before. Wherever you live, this weekend, I know it's Thanksgiving, pick a day and pick some place that's 120 miles from where you live right now. And if you have a car or whatever, if there's you need transportation, obviously, for this one. Maybe you have a friend. Pick a place. Pick a place you've never been. Everybody lives within 120 miles of some place they've never been. Could be a small town. Could be a large town. Could be a national park. I don't care. And pack a bag, get up, and hit the road at 6 o'clock in the morning. You and your friends. I had paper routes. I used to do at 4:30. You hit the road, you arrive someplace at 8 and have someplace, do some research and find like a greasy spoon or someplace that's open for breakfast. That's wherever this place is, and go have breakfast there. And when you have breakfast there, chat up the people that are actually in the diner. If there's a place where you can sit at a countertop rather than get your own table, sit at the countertop. And if there's 2 people and one stool between them, sit between them. And strike up a conversation. Ask people what it's like to live there. And then figure out, is there a place we should go see? or you can look it up yourselves. But just go with your friends and give it a couple. Find if there's a local bar. Have a good time in the morning and have lunch someplace too. And then go to the bar like at 4 p.m. and hang out. Talk to people. Ask what they do. And make it a point to never say anything about yourself unless you're asked. Ask people questions about themselves. Just ask them. And you know what? It's one day in your life. And see what happens. You never know. Maybe you'll find out something like the woods are dark, which would be bad. But it'd be interesting. Try it. Anyway, on that note, I want to thank everybody for watching the channel. Like, subscribe if you want. Please do. It's been depressing watching everybody leave. I've lost like 250 of you. But I want to thank Tom Jr. Jackson for being a moderator. I want to thank my long time. There will be, by the way, a member chat this week. For those of you who don't know, every other week we skipped last week because Roberto Suarez was gone. We have chats where member chats. If you're a member of the channel, we just hang out and talk. You guys, whatever you want. People raise their hands. You can say whatever you want. So there you go. And yeah. So what can I say? Join us. And it's funny. Peter Cunningham says Rob's saying this while he sits on YouTube. Yes, but, I just got back from Chicago, for instance, and I went to Iowa for the first time this past week. So I went to Iowa and Illinois on our Nathan Heller project, which you're going to hear a lot about in December. Somebody says I just changed my Twitter name because people have been calling me RMB. So I changed my Twitter name to RMB and then EE. So it's RMB. It's just because people have been calling me that. So that's why I changed my name. Because I thought that was kind of fun. RMB. But anyway, so, yeah. And somebody just fired in. Kenneth Colton says, thanks for the stream, Rob. We all love you. Well, Kenneth, some people do. Been getting a lot of hate lately. I understand, though. It's okay. But anyway, remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I say to all of you, have a better night.